There's something deeply revealing about a person's home that they never talk about in therapy, but probably should. Because the way you maintain your living space isn't just a habit. It isn't just a personality quirk. And it definitely isn't just about whether you were raised by a strict parent who made you make your bed every morning. It's a psychological mirror. And what it reflects, most people aren't ready to see. Some people walk into their home after a long day and immediately feel calm. The surfaces are clear. Everything is in its place. There's an order to things that makes their nervous system exhale. And other people? They live in a space that slowly, quietly drains them. Clutter in the corner they've been meaning to sort for 6 months. Dishes that pile up. Surfaces covered in things that don't have a place. And somewhere in the back of their mind, a low hum of guilt that never fully disappears. Here's what psychology has discovered about both of these people. Neither of them is simply clean or lazy. Both of them are telling a much deeper story about who they are, what they've been through, and what's happening inside their mind, whether they realize it or not. Think about the last time you walked into someone's home for the first time. Within seconds, before they said a word, before you sat down, before they offered you a drink, you had already formed an impression. You felt something. A sense of who this person was. Whether you'd feel comfortable here. Whether something was off. That instinct wasn't superficial. That was your brain reading a psychological landscape. Because a home is one of the few places where people reveal themselves without a mask. At work, people perform. On social media, people curate. But at home, most people simply exist. And that existence leaves traces. What you choose to keep. What you choose to throw away. What you allow to accumulate. Where you create order and where you tolerate chaos. These aren't random choices. They're expressions of your inner world projected outward onto your physical space. Psychologists have a concept called behavioral residue, the idea that our spaces carry the fingerprints of our psychological state. And nowhere is that more visible than in the cleanliness and organization of someone's home. Today, we're going to go deep into the psychology of people who consistently keep their homes clean. Not the ones who panic clean before guests arrive. Not the ones who clean once a month in a manic burst of productivity. But the ones who maintain order naturally, consistently, almost effortlessly. Because what drives them is far more complex, and far more emotionally interesting, than most people assume. Before we go into the signs, let's understand something important. Most people assume that people who keep clean homes are simply more disciplined. More organized. More together. Maybe a little controlling. And while there's truth buried in that assumption, it misses the deeper picture entirely. Psychology tells us that our external environment and our internal mental state are in constant conversation with each other. They influence each other in ways that are profound and bidirectional. A chaotic mind tends to create a chaotic space. A chaotic space tends to amplify a chaotic mind. And the reverse is equally true. But here's what's really fascinating. The reason someone keeps their home clean vary enormously from person to person. For one person, it comes from a place of deep anxiety, control over the environment as a defense against feeling out of control inside. For another, it comes from a genuine love of peace and clarity. For another, it's tied to self-worth, a clean home as a reflection of a life worth living. Same behavior. Completely different emotional roots. And understanding which route drives you. That's where the real self-awareness begins. So let's explore the psychological traits that consistently show up in people who maintain clean, ordered living spaces. Sign number 1, they have a complex relationship with control. Here's something nobody talks about openly. A lot of people who keep immaculate homes aren't doing it purely because they love tidiness. Deep down, they're doing it because their home is one of the few things in life they can actually control. Think about it. Life is unpredictable. Relationships are complicated. Work is uncertain. Health is fragile. The future is a fog. But that kitchen counter? That's yours. You decide what goes on it. You decide when it gets wiped down. You decide what it looks like. Psychology recognizes this as a form of compensatory control. When we impose order on one domain of life because we feel powerless in another. And here's where it becomes interesting. For many people, this isn't a flaw. It's actually a deeply intelligent coping mechanism. Research in environmental psychology consistently shows that maintaining an ordered physical space genuinely reduces cortisol levels. It calms the nervous system. It creates a psychological anchor when the rest of life feels like it's shifting beneath your feet. So when you see someone who keeps their home almost obsessively clean, don't just think, neat freak. Think about what storms they might be navigating internally. Because the cleaner the home sometimes gets, the louder the internal noise might be. That's not always the case. But it's worth asking the question. And the most self-aware version of this person has already asked it. Sign number 2, they experience their environment deeply, more than others realize. There's a subset of people in this world who are profoundly sensitive to their physical surroundings in a way that others simply aren't. Most people can walk into a slightly cluttered room and genuinely not notice. It doesn't register for them. It doesn't affect their mood. Their brain just filters it out as background noise. But for others, the ones who consistently maintain clean spaces, it's different. They feel their environment. A pile of unread mail on the counter doesn't just look messy. It creates a low-grade tension in their chest. A sink full of dishes doesn't just mean chores need doing. It creates a mental hum, a background awareness that something is unresolved, unfinished, incomplete. Psychologists sometimes link this to what's called sensory processing sensitivity. A trait found in a significant portion of the population, often associated with what Elaine Aron called the highly sensitive person, or HSP. People with this trait process the world more deeply. They're more affected by subtlety, light, sound, texture, and yes, spatial order. For them, a clean home isn't a preference. It's a genuine psychological need. Living in clutter doesn't just feel inconvenient, it feels genuinely dysregulating. Like trying to think clearly with someone talking loudly in your ear. And because they can't turn off this sensitivity, they learn to manage their environment instead. What many people label as perfectionism or rigidity in these individuals is often something else entirely, it's sensitivity trying to protect itself. Sign number 3, their self-worth is more tied to their space than they admit. This one cuts deep. And most people who relate to it won't immediately want to admit it. For a meaningful number of people who keep clean homes, the cleanliness is psychologically linked, directly, to their sense of self-worth and self-respect. Their home is a reflection of themselves. And allowing it to fall into disorder feels, emotionally, like allowing themselves to fall into disorder. On the surface, this looks like pride in one's home. And it can be. But underneath it, there's often a more vulnerable belief operating quietly in the background. If my home is a mess, something is wrong with me. If I let things slip, I am slipping. Keeping this clean means I still have it together. This connection between external order and internal self-image runs remarkably deep in some people. And it often has roots in early life, in homes where love, approval, or safety felt conditional. Where a messy room led to criticism, disappointment, or conflict. Where the implicit message was absorbed, your worth is visible in how you maintain your space. Now as an adult, that message still runs. Often on autopilot. The most psychologically healthy version of this person learns to separate the two, to clean their home because it brings them peace, not because their worthiness depends on it. But that separation takes real inner work. Most people don't realize they even need to do it. Sign number 4, they are often living with a higher than average cognitive load. This one might surprise you. We tend to assume that people who keep clean homes have quieter minds. That they're naturally peaceful, calm, serene types who simply prefer order. But psychology suggests something more complex. Many people who maintain obsessively clean, organized spaces are doing so precisely because their minds are extremely loud. Think about it this way. When you're carrying a lot internally, anxiety, overthinking, emotional stress, racing thoughts, your tolerance for external chaos drops dramatically. The brain can only manage so much disorder at once. When the inside already feels chaotic, even the sight of a messy countertop becomes too much to bear. Cognitive scientists refer to this as cognitive overload. When our mental processing capacity is already stretched, anything that adds to the load becomes disproportionately distressing. A clean space, for these individuals, is essentially an act of mental load management. Every item in its place means one less thing their brain has to unconsciously process and keep track of. Every organized surface means a slightly quieter mind. This is why you'll often find that the people who keep the cleanest homes are not the least stressed people. Quite the opposite. They're often among the most mentally active, most emotionally invested, most cognitively burdened people in their circles. The clean home isn't evidence of inner peace. Sometimes, it's the condition required for inner peace. There's a crucial difference. And recognizing which one applies to you changes everything. Sign number 5, they have a deep, often unspoken relationship with the future. Here's perhaps the most psychologically layered trait of all. People who consistently maintain clean, ordered homes tend to have a fundamentally different relationship with time than most people. Specifically, they live with a heightened awareness of their future self. Psychologists have studied what's called future self-continuity, the degree to which you feel connected to and responsible for the person you'll be in an hour, tomorrow, next week. People with high future self-continuity make choices in the present that protect and respect that future version of themselves. When someone washes the dishes immediately after cooking, not because they enjoy it, but because they know future them will walk into that kitchen tomorrow morning and either feel good or feel burdened, that's future self-continuity in action. When someone tidies their desk before they leave work, even though no one else would notice, that's a gift they're quietly preparing for their future self. What many people fail to understand is that this trait isn't about perfectionism. It's about a kind of deep self-respect extended forward in time. It's a form of love, actually. A love for the version of yourself that hasn't arrived yet. And here's where it becomes emotionally rich. People who struggle to maintain clean spaces often aren't lazy. Often, they're psychologically disconnected from their future self. The future feels abstract, distant, unreal. So present moment ease always wins. The dishes can wait. The clutter can stay. Future me will deal with it. But for the person with high future self-continuity, future me feels almost as real as present me. And letting future me walk into a mess feels, emotionally, like abandoning someone you love. Let's stop for a moment. Because everything we've covered so far might have landed differently depending on who you are. If you're someone who keeps a clean home, you may have recognized yourself in some of these traits, but perhaps not in the way you expected. Maybe you always thought you kept your home clean because you were simply a disciplined person. An organized person. But now you're sitting with something more complex. The control. The sensitivity. The self-worth connection. The cognitive load. The future self. And maybe you're asking yourself an honest question for the first time. Why do I really clean? Is it because it genuinely brings you joy? Because you love the feeling of a peaceful space? Because you respect yourself and your environment? Or is it because when things aren't clean, something inside you tightens? Because disorder feels dangerous? Because a messy home triggers feelings of failure, shame, or anxiety that have nothing to do with the physical space itself? There's no judgment in that question. There's only understanding. And the same goes for those of you watching who struggle with maintaining a clean home. Because psychology tells us something important about you, too. You are not simply lazy. You are not simply undisciplined. You may be someone who is genuinely overwhelmed. Someone whose nervous system is already running at capacity, and cleaning feels like one task too many. Someone who grew up in a home where cleanliness was never modeled. Someone who is depressed, and the state of your home is quietly reflecting an inner landscape that needs care and attention, not criticism. One of the most well-documented findings in clinical psychology is that the first visible sign of someone's mental health declining, whether it's depression, anxiety, burnout, or trauma response, is the deterioration of their home environment. Not because they suddenly became lazy. If any part of this resonated with you, if you found yourself thinking that's me or I never thought about it that way before, you're not alone. These are the kinds of connections between psychology and everyday life that most people sense but never have the language to express. Drop a comment below and tell me, does your home reflect your inner state right now? And do you feel like you clean from a place of peace, or from a place of something else? If you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior, subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the things that make you who you are, the patterns, the wounds, the strengths, and the quiet brilliance that most people never stop long enough to notice. Take care of your space. And take care of yourself. They are, in the end, the same thing.